Imagine standing inside Westminster Abbey in 1396. The air is sharp with autumn chill, the stone walls echo with whispers, and the scent of burning wax drifts through the nave. The great doors creak open, and the sight that enters leaves even seasoned priests breathless. A king, nearly 30, strides forward in golden splendor. And at his side a child no taller than his elbow, her hand engulfed by his. She is only 6 years old. This is Isabella of Valois, about to become Queen of England. This was no ordinary marriage. It was a gamble of kingdoms, a fragile thread of peace woven into the fabric of the 100 Years' War. And at its heart stood a little girl, cast into a game of power far beyond her years. Isabella came into the world on November 9, 1389, inside the Louvre Palace in Paris. From the moment she was born, she was surrounded by turmoil. Her father, Charles VI of France, would be remembered as Charles the Mad. At times, he ruled competently. At others, he dissolved into terrifying delusions, believing he was made of glass, refusing to bathe, or raging violently until servants had to restrain him. For young Isabella, this instability was her normal. One day her father might cradle her lovingly, and the next he might hide in a corner, convinced assassins hunted him. Her mother, Queen Isabeau of Bavaria, knew her children's value lay not in innocence, but in politics. And from an early age, Isabella was groomed for a role larger than herself. Meanwhile, France bled under the strain of the 100 Years' War. Villages smoldered after raids, fields lay abandoned, and generations grew up knowing little but conflict with England. By the 1390s, both crowns were weary. Neither side wanted to surrender, but neither could continue endlessly. Peace required something stronger than words. It required flesh and blood. In 1395, English and French ambassadors whispered of an audacious solution. England's King Richard II was still mourning the death of his beloved wife, Anne of Bohemia. Without an heir, his throne was vulnerable. France proposed that Richard remarry not for love, but for peace. Their candidate, a child, 6-year-old Isabella. Alongside her came a staggering dowry of 800,000 francs and a promise of a 28-year truce long enough for a new generation to grow up without war. It was shocking even by medieval standards. Noble girls often wed in their teens, but rarely so young. Yet French envoys argued her innocence symbolized a new beginning. Isabella could be raised among the English, molded into their queen, her loyalties shifting with time. The English court wavered. Some saw scandal, others saw salvation. Richard, gazing at Isabella's miniature portrait, softened. To some, it seemed the childless king envisioned not just a queen, but a daughter he could guide. After months of tense negotiation, the treaty was sealed. Isabella's childhood was over. The union required not one, but two ceremonies. The first took place on October 31, 1396, at Calais, a rare neutral ground, English yet standing on French soil. Isabella, dressed in cloth of gold, so heavy she could barely move, met her king. Witnesses described how Richard bent low to ease her fears, gently lifting her chin so she would meet his gaze. A year later, London swelled with excitement as the child bride was crowned at Westminster Abbey. Crowds crushed so tightly that several died in the frenzy to glimpse her. She appeared in a litter draped with roses and fleur-de-lis, crowned with jewels made to fit her small head. Nobles cheered, the people marveled. The message was clear: France and England were bound together, if only by a child. Inside Westminster, Isabella's new life began. She had her own chambers, her own household, and lessons tailored not for a girl, but for a queen in training. Richard treated her with remarkable tenderness, showering her with books, pets, and fine gifts. Their bond was paternal, protective. Though their marriage would never be consummated while she was a child, Isabella became a symbol of peace and a visible presence at court. Isabella adjusted quickly. She learned English customs, adopted the court's manner of speech, and befriended noble children raised alongside her. One girl, Margaret Holland, became her closest confidant. Together they played, sewed, and whispered about politics far beyond their years. Margaret explained what Isabella sensed. The English court was restless. Richard, though king, was not secure. His nobles resented his favoritism, his love of peace, his refusal to wage costly wars. Isabella, barely 8, began to watch and listen carefully. She was not simply a child at play, she was absorbing the dangerous lessons of monarchy. By 1399, storm clouds gathered. Richard's cousin, Henry Bolingbroke, returned from exile at the head of an army. Discontented nobles flocked to him. England teetered on the edge of civil war. Isabella's world shifted overnight. She was rushed from Westminster to the Tower of London under heavy guard. Her apartments, once lively with friends and tutors, became a gilded prison. Guards watched every door. When Richard visited, the change in him frightened her. He looked weary, disheveled, haunted by betrayal. "My child," he told her, "I may not be able to protect you." Not long after, Richard was captured. Henry Bolingbroke seized the crown, becoming Henry IV. The child queen, still only 9, was suddenly the widow of a living king, stranded in a foreign land. Isabella refused to accept Henry IV as her husband. Despite pressure, she declared herself Richard's true widow and demanded to return to France. Her courage astonished even hardened courtiers. Eventually, Henry relented, and the girl who had once symbolized peace was escorted back across the Channel. But her story did not end in defeat. In France, she matured into a striking young woman. By 1406, she was remarried, this time by choice, to Charles, Duke of Orleans. Unlike her first marriage, this union blossomed into genuine affection. Isabella became not just a duchess, but a partner, shaping policies, managing estates, and learning the subtleties of diplomacy. Life with Charles was not free of hardship. France was tearing itself apart in a brutal civil war between the Armagnacs and Burgundians. While Charles rode to battle, Isabella managed their lands, secured supplies, and even negotiated with rival factions. Letters from this period reveal a sharp mind and a woman no longer a pawn, but a player. She bore children, though motherhood took a toll. After a difficult third pregnancy, doctors warned that another birth might kill her. Still, she pressed on, guiding her children's education, instilling values of compassion and responsibility, determined they would not be consumed by the same chaos that haunted her own childhood. Her health declined, but her influence only grew. She mediated disputes, built charities for the war-torn poor, and even used her rare experience as a former Queen of England to discourage English interference in France's civil war. By 1410, Isabella's health was failing rapidly, likely from tuberculosis. Yet, even as her strength waned, her resolve remained unshaken. She continued advising Charles, overseeing her household, and preparing her children for a future she feared she would not see. In September 1409, at only 20 years old, Isabella of Valois died. Her funeral cortege stretched across Paris, mourned not just as a duchess or former queen, but as a woman who had faced impossible circumstances with dignity, intelligence, and courage. Charles of Orleans was devastated, and though he remarried, he never forgot the wife who had been both partner and advisor in his most difficult years. Their children carried forward her legacy, shaping French politics and culture for decades to come. Isabella's story is often reduced to a scandalous footnote: a child bride married to a man nearly 5 times her age. But to leave it there is to miss the remarkable arc of her life. She was born into madness, traded like a treaty, widowed before adolescence, and thrust back into a fractured homeland. And yet, she emerged as a leader in her own right: diplomat, mother, cultural patron, and survivor. Isabella's life reminds us that history is not only shaped by kings and battles. It is shaped by individuals who endure, adapt, and find meaning within systems designed to use them. She could have remained a victim of circumstance. Instead, she carved a legacy of strength and compassion that outlasted the wars and politics that once defined her. In the end, Isabella of Valois was more than a pawn. She was proof that even in the darkest corners of medieval power, humanity could still shine through.